Hello, everyone. My name is Faiza Ramadan, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about autism, gut health, and evolution, and the way these three may be linked in a way we might not be familiar with. So I'm sure a lot of us are already familiar with autism spectrum disorder, but just to go over it, autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disability caused by differences in the brain. Now, some people with autism spectrum disorder do have a known difference, such as a genetic condition. However, not everyone. So a lot of causes behind autism are still very unknown. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that every person with autism is so different. Like it says in the name, it is a spectrum and everyone has, different symptoms and different ways that they present, which makes it a very interesting and complicated disorder. However, one thing that we do know is that for some reason, children with autism are 67% more likely than the typical child to have a diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome. And about 40 to 60% of autistic children suffer from some sort of GI problems, such as like abdominal pain, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, things like that. However, how I mentioned before, the reasons behind autism are so unknown and so inconsistent, how are we seeing such a stark correlation between the two? So this kind of used to get brushed off as an outdated idea that, oh, children with autism are picky eaters, so that's why they have IBD, which didn't really make sense because, like I said, first off, autism is such a range and spectrum, and everyone with autism is so unique that not all children with autism are picky eaters. To show that degree of correlation, there's also no definitive evidence linking picky eating and irritable bowel disease. And picky eating can also manifest in a variety of ways, and it's going to be different for every individual. So to say that everybody's picky eating diet can give them irritable bowel disease doesn't really make sense, or irritable bowel disorder, sorry. And also the same statistics or correlation are not found in non-autistic picky eating individuals. So picky eating isn't something that is only seen in autistic individuals. So why are we only seeing that, stark 40 to 60% in autistic children? So emerging evidence suggests that the gut issues may not only be some correlation, but a probable cause that is causing differences in brain chemistry of those with autism. So one piece of evidence that we have is a possible genetic cause. So a single gene variant is found more often in people who suffer from both autism and gastrointestinal problems than in healthy control individuals. However, what's interesting is that this genetic variant is not being seen in families or individuals who are only suffering from autism. It is only being found in those who are suffering from autism and gastrointestinal problems, which shows that there might be something more at play here. The variant itself is the MET amino acid methionine, which plays a role in regulating the immune system and the proliferation of the epithelial cells which line your gut. And the epithelial cells are super important for repairing wounds induced by certain foods in that gut tract. So scientists kind of started to play around with the idea that things in your gastrointestinal system could directly affect your brain because of this correlation they were seeing. So they took this knowledge of the gut biome and possible links to autism, and an experimenter named Derek McFaby used this for his experimental model. So he took propionic acid, which is a major microbial fermentation metabolite found in the human gut, and he administered that into the cerebrospinal fluid of rats. The rats, very interestingly, did show brain and behavior changes, such as an increase in brain inflammation and a decrease in social interaction as seen in people with autism. This is just some photos from his paper. So here you see the glial and microglial cells. Left is normal, right is after the administration, and you can see that obvious inflammation, which is something that, can also be seen in individuals with autism. So this just came to this quote. So basically at this time, science is really starting to kind of pick up on the idea that a gut biome could actually, for some reason, change behavior and brain chemistry. So this brought people to the leaky gut hypothesis, which basically proposes that the gastrointestinal tract could be, for some reason, abnormally permeable to dietary and environmental substances, which are then leaking into the bloodstream and triggering inflammation in autistic individuals. Now, a healthy digestive system would usually break down wheat, milk, protein, things like that into peptides and then into amino acids. These smaller particles will then be absorbed by the intestine and they'll enter the bloodstream in a normal process. However, according to the leaky gut hypothesis, children with autism have a leaky gut, and that doesn't allow them to fully metabolize the proteins, which lets them leak into the brain and act as opiates, directly causing autism symptoms. So to kind of further on this, there was another rat model where mice were exposed prenatally to the epilepsy drug valproic acid, and they did start to have autism-like symptoms. They started preferring inanimate objects over interacting with a cage mate, things like that. And then in 2013, a group of researchers from the Netherlands found that those animals also, like thought, had an altered profile of gut bacteria compared with the control mice. So again, they had that difference in gut bacteria and the difference in behavior. However, several follow-up studies have now started to refute the leaky gut hypothesis or theory, showing that children with autism don't have excess opioid peptides in their urine. So they're saying, yes, in some models, the individuals with different gut biomes were having different behavior, but we can't prove that children with autism have opiates in their urine or that's what's causing this. However, to kind of further upon this, in 2013, microbiologist Sarkis Mazmanian did another experiment where he injected pregnant mice with a virus-like molecule to stimulate an immune response. The mice's pups did exhibit autism-like behavior. They had that repeated behavior that we see in individuals with autism with their excessive self-grooming, and they also showed a social disinterest in other mice. His team, again, found that these pups had a difference in gut bacteria than control mice do, and they developed leaky guts with increased blood levels of bacterial compound 4-ethylphenyl sulfate. However, this doesn't change the fact that, according to, like we said, the slide before, children with autism were not having those excess opioid peptides in their urine. However, the researcher Mazmanian found out that treating pups with a bacteria commonly found in healthy biomes called Bacterophobos fragilis, probably said that crazy wrong, actually sealed their leaky guts. So the mice lost their repetitive behaviors, but not their social deficits. So they no longer were showing evidence of a leaky gut. However, they still had social deficits, which could be, said to be directly caused by the virus-like molecule that was injected. Now, those were some interesting theories and mechanistic theories on autism. However, regardless of why autism is caused, doesn't really answer the question in this case, why was autism not eliminated by natural selection? So we're going to go over this paper, Evolutionary Approaches to Autism, an Overview and Integration. This paper basically just goes over a couple of hypotheses on why autism might have been favored by natural selection, and one of them that I think is the most plausible and the most kind of relevant is their systemizing brain hypothesis, which basically said that high-functioning autistic individuals tend to outperform unaffected people with similar IQs on systemizing tasks that kind of test their memory and spatial ability and things like that. And they kind of said, if you go back to a hunter-gatherer society, in an evolutionary lens, men with well-developed systemizing skills and underdeveloped empathizing and social skills might have had an evolutionary advantage. Systemizing skills might have been important in making tools, weapons, hunting, tracking, trading, going out, and kind of for the discovery or things like that. And while, autistic individuals sometimes lack social awareness or social skills the way that the average person does, they said this might have actually been an advantage in, situations that would present themselves in a hunter-gatherer society, such as like eliminating rivals or living in solitude, being far away from home for hunting, being able to compartmentalize or not kind of need that social interaction might have actually been evolutionary advantage. Of course, nowadays we don't live in a hunter-gatherer society, but like we mentioned before in class, evolution doesn't really care about anything other than if you can reproduce. And there's not really any stark reproductive issues or disadvantage in autism that would kind of that would kind of cause it to be naturally selected, basically. And, autistic individuals live long lives and definitely, on average, live until reproductive age. And that's all evolution really cares about. But of course, there still is advantages for kind of autism in our current society. Of course, like I said before, every autistic individual is so different, but there are a certain set of skills that autistic individuals do have today that still have an advantage, like deep focus, attention to detail, observational skills, things like that, and the list goes on. So it still is kind of true today. And, despite everything I've mentioned today and the papers I've cited and a lot of the work that's been done, so many questions still remain, even if it is accepted as fact that the gut biome or even the leaky gut is directly causing autism symptoms. We know that that's actually not the case for every autistic individual. Some of them are genetic causes. Some of them might be other environmental causes. So yeah, if anyone watching this has any questions, I highly recommend them to reach out to me. And also, if anyone has any other information that I didn't mention here, I'm super interested in the topic. So I would also love if you guys reached out to me or had anything else to say on it. But yeah, thank you. I hope you enjoyed.